Peace, 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 peace. I'm Rami Salam El. I thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. We have a great discussion, great build today. Who are we? And before I even get to saying anything, let's get to the footage, and then we'll come back. We'll build on the foundation, and then we'll go from there. All right.
So with life, I say it's about a choice. So coming to you guys today and being very interested in Black News TV 102 and the scholars and everybody that be a part of the station, I was trying to wonder, like, I wasn't hearing nobody speak on, like, what should we be called? Like, who are we? You know, I hear Sinetta, he be on his Kemetic kick, you know what I'm saying?
He be kicking that shit.
Yeah, he be Kemeted out, you know, he just Egypt crazy, you know.
All right, one time for JoJo Capone, Global Gangsters, all my peoples out in Chicago. He brought a great question to the table. Who are we? You know what I mean? So-called Black people, so-called African Americans, so-called Negroes, so-called colored folks. Who are we? You know? And he was having this discussion with an elder named Professor James Smalls. And I don't even want to give my piece yet. I want you to hear something James Smalls was speaking on, okay? And I want you to listen very closely. And then when we get back, then we get into it. All right.
When I talk to people about Islam, because I was in the heart of Islam, I made it to the top of Islam. I went before something called the Rabat Alim al Islamim, and they gave me my credentials to teach in the Western Hemisphere. And then I walked away because I realized that they weren't giving me my credentials to be an African, to be a Black man, the way I wanted to be it. The closest thing to a legitimate Islamic expression in our community is the Nation of Islam. But unfortunately, because of that crisis between Malcolm and them, our people won't give that legitimacy a chance.
Right.
All right, so now that we got the foundation laid, now let's really build on things. JoJo Capone was asking, you know, he's searching for knowledge, wise brothers searching for knowledge, searching to understand who we truly are and what should we call ourselves, you know, in particular moving forward as a people. The elder, you know, and there's a lot of discussion in there, you know, but I focused in on this particular part of Islam where he was speaking on Islam because it all ties back in to precisely the question JoJo Capone was asking. Who are we? Now, Brother James, Elder James, Professor James Smalls, you know, said, as you saw, that he was in the heart of Islam, that he had went to the top of Islam, that he had traveled to the east and did studies, so much so that he had got accreditation to teach in the Western Hemisphere. I'm not that acclaimed kind of person. I want to get this straight. I want to make this clear. I'm not trying to make it seem like I have some, you know, infinite knowledge over people. I'm born and raised from Oakland, California. Humble young dude, just studying on the same type of tip that JoJo Capone is on, wanting to understand who we are and how do we move forward, unified. And before I get to saying my piece, I want to read something from Malcolm X, one of my biggest inspirations. And this is coming from page 347. And it's from his letter from Mecca. And it says, "You may be shocked by these words coming from me, but on this pilgrimage, what I have seen and experienced has forced me to rearrange much of my thought patterns previously held, and to toss aside some of my previous conclusions. This was not too difficult for me. Despite my firm convictions, I have always been a man who tries to face facts and to accept the reality of life as new experience and new knowledge unfolds it. I have always kept an open mind, which is necessary to the flexibility that must go hand in hand with every form of intelligent search for truth." I want to read that to preface it, because getting into what I'm about to get into, it rubs people the wrong way. It makes people uncomfortable, but we have to go there because the truth is the truth. Professor James Smalls also said that the NOI is the closest thing to a legitimate expression of Islam for us, for our people. So that's where we're going to start. Islam for Dummies. I didn't go to the East. I don't have, some special title behind my name. I wasn't studying Islam for, 20 years. So, I'm not claiming to be the most knowledgeable. But I'm going to just read this section right here. This is Islam in America, chapter 15, page 248. Reestablishing a black, quote-unquote, black Muslim community. By 1900, Islam had pretty well disappeared among the descendants of former slaves in the United States. Of course, racism hadn't disappeared in the United States, and religion was one of the ways that African Americans attempted to assert their identity and claim their place in America. Most African Americans were and remain Christians, but some African Americans rejected Christianity and turned to the religion that many of their ancestors had practiced, Islam. This section traces the development of African American Islam by focusing on the 6 key leaders. The first one, Noble Drew Ali. The Moorish Science Temple of America is the first explicitly Islamic movement in the United States. I'm going to read that sentence one more time. Let me read the sentence before. This section traces the development of African American Islam by focusing on the 6 key leaders. And this is coming from Islam for Dummies. Noble Drew Ali. The Moorish Science Temple of America is the first explicitly Islamic movement in the United States. Timothy Drew, we now know as Noble Drew Ali, its founder was born in 1886. But I don't even just want to go off of what I'm saying. I would love for us to listen to another elder.
This great city, in it in 1913, Brother Noble Drew Ali set up the Canaanite temple in Newark. And it's very, very important because 1914 ended the time of the devil. According to what Allah revealed to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, his time was up to rule us. We are now in our time. And he's in our time. It's very important because Noble Drew Ali was the prime predecessor of Master Fard Muhammad bringing Islam to the black man of America. While Mr. Garvey would not teach religion, though a Muslim influenced him, he did not feel it was his place to teach religion. And Mr. Garvey struck more success with the common man by a more nationalistic Pan-African approach, which had something to do with access to land and freedom. But Noble Drew Ali had the same thought, but he came in a religious vein. And even though Noble Drew Ali had passed, and many of the former followers of Noble Drew Ali came to join the nation. We write a letter to get an X, but he never, ever touched the names that Noble Drew Ali gave to his followers, they already had a righteous name. They already were out from under the enemy.
I want to say much love and respect to the NOI, the Nation of Islam, to the Fruit of Islam, to Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, to everybody that's a part of that organization. And respect and much love and appreciation to Professor James Smalls, and to any and all of our black activists, black leaders, black scholars, quote-unquote black scholars, and any of them, anybody that is, joining the fight and helping to uplift our people. Thank you. That being said, for me, I got to stand on truth. One of the 5 principles that I stand on: love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Truth. And we got to be truthful, especially in these days and time. Elder Professor James Smalls is incorrect about Islam. You heard it not only from Islam for Dummies, but from the head of the Nation of Islam himself, Louis Farrakhan, Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Noble Drew Ali, why am I bringing that up? Because Noble Drew Ali was in Chicago. And if James Smalls, as he said, was in the heart of Islam, went to the top of Islam, it's no way possible that he would have missed Noble Drew Ali. And how come he didn't mention Noble Drew Ali and the Moorish Science Temple of America explicitly to JoJo Capone, who's from Chicago? I don't know. That's not the focus. The focus is, let's correct the misinformation. Let's correct the errors. Let's get back on the path. Noble Drew Ali taught who we are. And I'm going to read, he has literally an excerpt called, "What Shall We Call Him?" speaking about us. Let me read it. It says, "So often our various journalists find trouble in selecting the proper name for the Moorish American. Some say Negro, other will brand him race man, still another will call him Afro-American, and then come colored, dark American, coon, shine, the brethren, and your folks. It is indeed a hard matter to find something suitable for the various occasions where a title needs to be used. Is it that these people have no proper name? Did they have a national name when first brought to these shores in the early part of the 17th century? If so, what was it? Did not the land from which they were forced have a name? Now appears a good idea for those whose duty it is to write for the various journals to find out what the nationality of the forefathers of these people was. Also look into the history of the founders of civilization, and see who they were and where they stood in the building of the present civilization. Probably 2 hours in an up-to-date library would serve to relieve the strain on our men of letters. When the occasion presents itself for a title for these people, the matter of various names given to these 22 millions of people with all colors of every race of the globe was an act of European psychology. They gave him a name and then defined it as something inferior to theirs. White they defined as a color of purity. Black, they said, represents everything of evil. The Negro, as they were called in this nation, have no nation in which they might look to with pride. Their history starts with the close of the Civil War, and more properly, with his being forced to serve someone else. Thus, he is separated from the illustrious history of his forefathers, who were the founders of the first civilization of the old world. This matter should be looked into with the hope of correcting it." Now, that was from Noble Drew Ali. And just to build on what he's saying, the idea of white, calling people white, or calling ourselves black. Black is an adjective. An adjective describes people or places, things. Those are nouns. Black is not a noun. Black describes, but it doesn't identify. It doesn't let us know who we are. For that, we need our nationality, and that is precisely what Noble Drew Ali was teaching. And that is where the influence comes with the Nation of Islam. Because Noble Drew Ali was teaching nationality, but it wasn't just nationality. The movement was divine and national. He had both. He had the balance, baby. You know what I'm saying? But let me get into the actual text that he brought. I don't know if you have read this or not, but if you haven't, please pick this up and read it for yourself, which he says in here that man knows nothing by being told. You know, if we just believe what people tell us, we can easily get misled. Sometimes the people that are telling us things don't even know that what they're telling us is misinformation, that is inaccurate information. And that's why we have to study for ourselves so that we know for ourselves. So can't nobody tell us. And I want to read real quick from chapter 47, line 9. It says, according to all true and divine records of the human race, there is no Negro, black, or colored race attached to the human family, because all the inhabitants of Africa were and are of the human race, descendants of the ancient Canaanite nation from the holy land of Canaan. What your ancient forefathers were, you are today without doubt or contradiction. That's very key. We can't change who we are just because we fit. This is who we are. This is who we, like JoJo Capone, he was born into a certain situation. That is who he is. He can't help it. It's just the facts. Continuing. There is no one who is able to change man from the descent nature of his forefathers, unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator Allah himself. And then I'm going to come down just a bit here. And it says, the time has come that every nation must worship under his own vine and fig tree, and every tongue must confess his own. Through sin and disobedience, every nation has suffered slavery due to the fact they honor not the creed and principles of their forefathers. And that is why the nationality of the Moors was taken away from them in 1774, and the word Negro, black, and colored was given to the Asiatics of America, who were of Moorish descent, because they honored not the principles of their mother and father, and strayed after the gods of Europe, whom they knew nothing of. This last line I'm going to close out, all right? Chapter 48, line 10, it says, come all ye Asiatic of America, and hear the truth about your nationality and birthrights, because you are not Negroes. Now, mind you, he was teaching in 1913 when we was called, quote-unquote, Negroes. It changed over time, so you just swap out Negroes for you are not blacks. You are not African Americans. Learn of your forefathers' ancient and divine creed, that you will learn to love instead of hate. To close it up, because I didn't want to build too long on this. To close it up and to answer the question very clearly. Who are we? What should we call ourselves, as JoJo Capone asked? We are Moors. We should call ourselves Moors, and our nationality, Moorish American. Why? Because we're descendants of Moroccans and born in America. And if you dig deeper, it gets deeper. But that is at the very simple, the base of it. That's who we are. And Noble Drew Ali, just to tie it all around, tie it all up, Noble Drew Ali was the first one. He was the one that came teaching us this. He was the one that came to teach us our nationality, our identity. That's how every other people identify themselves. Chinese, Japanese, Haitian, Puerto Rican, Dominicans, you know, you name it, El Salvadorians, Brazilians, you know, shout out to my Polish people, shout out to the Irish people, you know what I mean? Nationalities, nations. And who are we? Black is not a nationality. African American is not a nationality. Colored, no. Negro, no. No. Afro, no. Moorish American to be exact. And Noble Drew Ali was teaching nationality. But I don't just want to leave it at that. We're going to tie it all together with something so sweet. We're going to tie it together. Listen to this last brother explain how important nationality or nationalism is for us. Much love. Keep shining. Most importantly, study this information for yourself. Don't believe me. Please study it for yourself so that you can know the truth about who we are. All right. One love.
Nationalism is the wave of the present and the future. It is nationalism that's bringing freedom to oppressed people all over the world. It was nationalism that brought freedom to the Algerians. It was nationalism that brought freedom to the Nigerians and to the Ghanaians. It was nationalism that brought freedom to the people of Uganda and Tanganyika and Sudan and Somaliland. The Africans didn't get it by sitting in. They didn't get it by waiting in. They didn't get it by singing "We Shall Overcome." They got it through nationalism. And you and I will get it through nationalism.